Yes, welcome in everyone. This is the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. Buckle up those seatbelts and enjoy the ride. It's time for the NFL Week 12 review.
Hey, we're rolling. We got all game. Stay tuned, man. We got something special for y'all today.
You're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
To the 10, right to the 5, scooting in for the score. Touchdown.
Yeah!
Yeah, so welcome in one and all. This is the Week 12 preview. You'll notice that there's no Mr. Sean Blundell, and he's watching his soccer team, Aston Villa. I don't know what the score is. He might join us at some point later in the show, but who knows? That's the joy of live television, isn't it? But we welcome you all in one and all. We are here for you to recap everything over the Week 12 period. You will notice that we won't talk about the Dallas Cowboys because they actually had got a proper, well and truly stuffed turkey. But I can't guarantee that Mr. Voss won't talk about the Washington the Washington football team. But yeah, happy belated Thanksgiving to one and all. Hope you all had a lovely bit of turkey. Obviously, the main news coming out from Thursday is Lions fans can actually have a smile on their face with the news that the mad scientist Matt Patricia and GM Bob Quinn have gone. Interesting that Lions fans contributed towards just one of Deshaun Watson's charities, wasn't it? Saying thanks for getting through with Matt Patricia. You got to love the NFL, haven't you? You got to love the fans. But as you can see, my two other guys in the huddle to talk all about Sunday's action and all the ramifications, including the playoff picture race. First up, Mr. Lawrence Voss, Mr. Retro. Are you back on the Washington football team bandwagon now? Are you going to recurse them or
just a little bit? I might be doing a bit of Javianas at the moment.
Who's the? I saw the signature on that hat. Who's the signature?
That, believe it or not, and you won't believe it, that is Tim Tebow's signature.
Oh, I remember that's from the Wembley. Is that from the Wembley game?
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. Oh, there you go. If you did a Venn diagram of Washington caps and Tim Tebow signatures, there's not going to be that.
Yeah, I think I've got one of the very few in existence on the planet Earth. So
yeah, that's going to be the only Washington Redskins hats with a Tim Tebow signature on it. Anyone else out there that may be watching, or anyone knows of a Washington Redskins cap that is out there in the universe with the Tim Tebow signature, please let us know and we'll retweet it out, and maybe Lawrence will buy it off you. I don't know. Maybe he wants to.
Yeah, definitely. Tim, I've just got one little question for you. Okay. Why does Mike McCarthy hate guitar music?
Something about strings?
Because he doesn't like to play a Gibson.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Come for the NFL analysis state for the jokes, ladies and gents. Plenty more of that where that came from. But as you can see, top right hand corner of your screen, resident New England fan, a Nick Folk fan club member, no doubt. Kieran Patterson from the College Pod. Obviously, quick costume change, similar to any Super Bowl halftime show. Snap up anything nice in the Thanksgiving sales, Black Friday sales? Because obviously it's a bit different over there for you, isn't it?
I got this. That's about it. That's just a prop for the college football podcast, but New England won a game, so I am happy with Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, there you go. Just a little bit. Well, he's more happy than this pile of crap here. But anyway, enough about that. We're going to talk about the playoff pictures. Obviously, a lot of games going on in the NFL from Week 12 with lots of playoff ramifications. Obviously, NFC West is being one, and obviously the huge cross-divisional matchup between Kansas City and the Bucs, which we will get to. If you want to get involved, comment, chat, let us know. Obviously, we're depending on where you're watching. If it's YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, contact us and leave a message. And then any messages that come up through the show, we will put them on and discuss them if we do see fit. But appreciate you all joining us. And to say, if you are a conventional podcast listener where we are between your ears and not necessarily in between your eyes, thank you for joining the ride. As I hopefully you got your seatbelts on, because we're about to get going. And we start off obviously game of the week. Tony Romo and Jim Nantz obviously on the call for this one. Tampa Bay at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Kieran, 27-24 in this one. What a first quarter. Give us what do we make of the second half in this one? Because obviously the Kansas City Chiefs were 27-10 up in the middle of the third after Tyreek's third touchdown pass for the paltry 20 yards compared to his other two. But what did you make of the Bucs' second half performance?
Something changed in that locker room. And it's almost like what we see with Kansas City last year. Every playoff game they won, They were down 10 or more points at the half. That's a interesting fact about them, and Kansas City would always come out and readjust. And I think, Tampa Bay did that. Look, my biggest problem with Tampa Bay right now is they have stacked every single position with talent upon talent upon talent. And I hate to say this, but they put a 43-year-old man at quarterback. I apologize to any 43-year-olds out there, but I doubt any of you are NFL quarterbacks. His arm isn't in it anymore. Bruce Arians, I don't know whether he's so ignorant to the fact of how Tom Brady's playing or Tom Brady's refusal to change, but he won't change the game plan to what made Tom Brady successful. Tom Brady has never been athletic, never had a big arm. The only two things that got Tom Brady to where he is now is an incredible football IQ and drive and fire to win. And he's not, he's still got the fire, but he's not. Look, Bruce Arians' offense is a lot of flashy passes, airing it out. That's why Jameis went 30 for 30, because you put a blind guy at quarterback, he's going to have a lot of picks. Just how it happens. But Tom Brady does not fit into this offense either. He is a guy who is known to dink and dunk and keep time of possession and chip away at defenses, and he hasn't been able to do that since he arrived at Tampa Bay. And this game is just another, just another showing of that. I said that Tampa Bay were probably going to win. No, not Tampa Bay. Kansas City were probably going to win, and it would probably be close. It would probably be about 3 points in it, and there was 3 points in it. I love being right on Kieran's corner. But let's just look at the Buccaneers to start with before I start gushing all over Kansas City. Tom Brady was 27 of 41, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, and they had 76 rushing yards as a team with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette in the backfield. You only ran the ball 12 times. We've said this every single week. Tampa Bay, you need to run the ball. You can't win games relying on a 43-year-old's arm and no run game. You need to pound the rock, and they are not doing it. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette should have 15 carries a game each, not 12 between them. It's just poor mismanagement by Bruce Arians. They've got these absolute stud pass catchers: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Bray as well. Scotty Miller is fantastic when he's been on, but they are not utilizing this team to its full potential. And I hate to say it because I hate the Chiefs for what they did to the Patriots for a couple of years, had us on strings, except for when it mattered. But, Patrick Mahomes could have set a record. 49 dropbacks this game, 37 completions, 462 yards and 3 touchdowns. Everyone got involved. Their run game wasn't as, impactful as I thought it could be. They only gave one of the best small men in the league, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They only gave him 11 touches, and they only gave Le'Veon Bell 5 touches. So that could have really helped them elevate the score, because they've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who you can stick on a gap play and he'll get you 6 yards. And then you've got guys like Le'Veon Bell who can really burst out of the backfield with their downhill speed. Receivers, obviously, Tyreek Hill had a game. I don't like him personally. I think he's a trash human being, but Tyreek Hill had you guys know why. He had an absolute game this weekend. He was feasting 269, say it with me, nice yards and 3 touchdowns. He was just everywhere on the field. Travis Kelce as well, another guy. He's a tight end, but he lines up like a wide receiver, an absolute talent. 82 yards on 8 catches. Just Sammy Watkins as well. Sammy Watkins, a great ball player. Same with Mecole Hardman, who's been kind of muted this year, but last year we saw him come out and he looked fantastic. Kansas City deserved to have more points in this game, if you ask me. They played rings around Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay looked lost. Tom Brady was flinging the ball out into places where his receivers weren't even in 10 yards of. It was a bad show all around. It was badly coached by Bruce Arians, and honestly, Andy Reid, you need to reassess yourself too, because the fact you only beat Tampa Bay by 3 points when you've got the weapons you have, come on, man, you should have scored a lot more points. You should have had at least 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns to add to the total. But yeah, Chiefs outplayed Tampa Bay, and I don't even think this is the best iteration of the Chiefs we've seen. When you look back at what they did in the Super Bowl last year, and the AFC Championship game last year, and the AFC Divisional round last year, and when they played, was it 2019 when they had the Battle of LA with the Rams? This team can do so much, and they just look muted against Tampa Bay. I think they deserve to win by a lot more as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I obviously want to point out with that. You know, you're saying about Kansas City should have won by a lot more, and Tampa Bay not going away from the run game. I suppose when you go down to big chunk plays and touchdowns like Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes did, it forces you out of kind of script anyway. But I agree, because Tony Romo seemed to think it was the second coming of the Harlem Globetrotters in the second half against Kansas City, and I just thought it was a whole load tosh. Because Jim Nantz asked him to say, Tony Romo made the comment that this is going to be the Super Bowl, and he said that the offense had evolved in the second half. I don't know what planet he's on. I don't know what game he was watching. All I saw was just throw ups by Tom Brady to the outside of Mike Evans, and his connection with Mike Evans was so off last night. He didn't know when he was going to do cuts on his curls or his out, or when he was breaking on his in and out routes. It just didn't look good. And you're right. Tom Brady doesn't look like he fits in this offense, and Bruce Arians is too stubborn to change that. But just a couple of notes on Lawrence before I just bring you in to see if there's anything you want to talk about. And you could get lost for the next hour in the amount of stats and different records that have been broken in this game. But Tyreek Hill first quarter had 7 receptions, 203 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes second all time in first quarter passing yards, 229, just behind Peyton Manning from back in 2004. And the most 300 plus yards passing in a first half since he entered the league. I think he has more than all QBs throughout since he entered the league before halftime than all of them combined. I think he had 4, and I think all the rest of the league have 3. So just shows you the potency of the offense. But it is quite an interesting debate to have to see. Was it Kansas City just easing up in the second half and easing up close home, as they say in horse racing, or was it the fact that Tampa Bay did come back, but it never felt like they were going to get close. I know the scoreline probably flatters them, but it was a good game all the same. But it was one early doors to be quite honest, and Mahomes and Hill and the rest of it could have done what they wanted whenever they wanted, to be quite honest. Lawrence, anything from you from the game?
It's just a cautionary note against the Chiefs' defense. Now we know, no doubt about the potency of that offense. We could talk about all their skilled players, for the next hour, and we still wouldn't be done with giving them praise. But that defense has got some vulnerability. Yes, the gas came slightly off because they had a big lead. But let's look at that Chiefs defense. It is a little bit vulnerable. It's not full of superstars. Frank Clark made a few big errors, didn't he, in the game? Big penalties, late hit on the quarterback, which kind of, kept a drive going that had pretty much died. So let's remember that at the moment they're still not the top team in the AFC. They're still the second-ranked team in the AFC. And if the Chiefs and Steelers were to face off right now, I still think the Steelers' defense will give them a big run for their money. So if that's going to be the AFC Championship, we could be talking about the Steelers going back to their 7th Super Bowl. We genuinely could. That Chiefs defense has vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to say if you give me a Steelers-Chiefs AFC Championship game, sign me up all day long. But two teams, obviously, that we'll be hoping that isn't the case come at the end of January is the Titans and the Colts. Of course, this is a rematch of Thursday Night Football in Week 10 and the flipping a reverse, essentially, of the scoreline, I suppose, Lawrence. Exchanged early TDs, I think, on the first 4 drives. I think it was touchdowns on the first 4 drives of the game. But, the Colts couldn't keep up in the end, and the Beaver is at it again.
Yeah, I mean the Beaver, he's a mutant monster Beaver, isn't he? And he's creeping his way, well, more like stomping his way into the MVP race as well. I mean, I was talking about Alvin Kamara being in the MVP race, but he's absolutely getting screwed like a I don't know what by Taysom Hill. This is Alvin Kamara had 67 catches 2 weeks ago. 67 catches. in 9 games. And now in the last 2 games, he's had 1 catch in those 2 games, albeit 2 Saints wins. And we're not talking about the Saints, but just kind of that MVP not being a quarterback. We're actually starting to talk about Derrick Henry in that, in that potential MVP race. He is that significant to the team. It was a big milestone for Henry. Reached 5,000 yards. Okay, it took him 73 games, but we've got to remember here, Henry took a couple of years really to adapt into his role. He only started 4 games in his first 2 seasons, and he actually averaged under 40 yards rushing in a game in his rookie season and his second season. He had his first 1,000-yard season in 2018, and then where he's absolutely started blowing minds is the last 2 seasons. And I think we've got to, whilst I know he's had a couple of dodgy games, we've got to give some big credit to Ryan Tannehill, who's been using that play-action passing game, and he's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the last, 1.5 seasons. I know he kind of came on late in, in 2019, but he's been highly accurate bar 1 or 2 games. I mean, Henry himself has 2,797 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns in his last 16 games. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he is averaging 107 yards a game and a touchdown since the start of 2019, which is just absolutely phenomenal considering all the ups and downs of what's gone on, the fact that they were the first team to have the big COVID outbreak, all of this going on around him, and he's averaging 107 yards rushing a game for the last 2 seasons. I mean, I think really, Henry's only weakness is his lack of versatility. You're not going to be throwing passes to him. He's not an Alvin Kamara. He'd be lucky to catch about 20, 25 balls in a season, and that's on an exceptional season. In fact, he averages 8.5 yards receiving a game, and he's only caught just over 50% of his dump-off kind of catches this season, which is a career low. So he is pretty one-dimensional, but that one dimension that he's got is mind-blowing. His 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half, along with another absolute highlight reel touchdown hookup between Tannehill and AJ Brown, who is looking. Is AJ Brown going to be an All-Pro? It's kind of borderline. He's on his way to an All-Pro season, I think. And you get into halftime, they put 35 up, the game's effectively won. And that touchdown, the Titans' 5th touchdown for Tannehill, that again, the fake the run and just ran in and kind of did his little flip in the air with the ball, was a carbon copy of that 2-point conversion against the Ravens when every single defender keyed on him. I mean, for goodness sake, could someone just key on Brian Tannehill at the goal line, please? If he does it 3 weeks in a row, that's just ridiculous. I'm going to go. I'll go and become an NFL coach and say, look out for Ryan Tannehill at the goal line, please. I mean, this was a Colts team that for a second week in a row were absolutely abysmal in the first half, and then they woke up in the second half, and they actually managed to outscore the Titans in the second half, bizarrely. But they failed on both the 2-point conversions that they got in their kind of second half touchdowns. If they would have got those 2-point conversions, it actually would have been a 1-score game going into the end. It would have been a 1-score game. They would have been 8 points down, but it would have been a 1-score game. So then when they go just over 2 minutes left, they go for that onside kick, and then AJ Brown kind of eyes light up. The ball bounces perfectly for him. And kind of the Colts kind of kickoff team were just kind of going, what just happened there? And then there's AJ Brown 42 yards later in the end zone for a touchdown. So it kind of flattered them a little tiny bit at the end with that score, but the Titans absolutely deserved the win. One thing I would like to say is absolute best wishes to the Colts punter, Rigoberto Sanchez. He's actually having a cancerous tumour removed tomorrow. So on behalf of everyone at Full 10 Yards, I want to give best wishes to Rigoberto Sanchez, because that kicker and punter combination on the Colts is kind of I think, the most fun combination of a kicker and a punter we've had for a long, long time, probably since Sebastian Janikowski and Shane Leckler for the Raiders, in terms of that kind of iconic combo of kicker and punter. So if you can think of a better combination, tweet us at full 10 yards. Better legendary kicker and punter combination. So Tim, you asked me before this kind of what's changed in terms of the Colts and the Titans. So 3 weeks ago, Henry just about cracked 100 yards against the Colts, 0 touchdowns. Last night, he had 8 more carries, 178 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns in the first half, and totally just stomped the soul out of the Colts defense. Interestingly, both teams are 3-2. They finished November, both 3-2. So exact same records. Looking at the remainder of the schedule, aside from the Steelers, the Colts have got 3 winnable games, and the Week 14 game against Las Vegas is going to be a monster game to see if either team has got any real chance of going anywhere in the playoffs. They do have 2 games against quite a resurgent Texans team, and they're going to need to win both of those to stand a good chance of going anywhere deep. Titans, they've got 2 challenges left in their season. They've got the Browns and the Packers, but they can realistically go 12-4. And don't forget, this is a Titans team that's done what in the last 4 years?
Not a lot.
Finished 9-7, 9-7, 9-7, and 9-7.
Yeah.
So, they're hoping to crack the magic 10-win barrier.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So good luck, Titans fans, on trying to get to double-digit wins for the first time in quite a while. What were the big differences, I think, between the 2 games? Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, the rookie, who's got just over 500 yards this season, was missing because of COVID, and that kind of meant that the Colts running game was pretty non-existent. They had a shocking 2.7 yards a carry. Hines and Jonathan Wilkins, who was supposed to have a good game because I put him on my DraftKings teams, but he absolutely the bed, failed to get over 30 yards. 2 rushing touchdowns were by Jacoby Brissett, who is I can't think in living memory, probably aside from Tim Tebow, of a legitimate starting NFL quarterback who's actually transformed from a starting quarterback into a short yardage back.
That's straight out of the Jordan Howard textbook, isn't it?
Yeah, just absolutely bonkers. So yeah, it's these 2 teams are kind of there and thereabouts, but I think the combination of Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, and the Beaver have just got that bit more quality, and I think it's possible, I guess, that they could meet up in a wild card game somewhere along the line. They could make it a 3rd game, and I say by the time it gets there, it could still be a toss up.
Yeah, I think one big difference for me between the 2 games, obviously DeForest Buckner, obviously 49ers link there. DeForest Buckner wasn't in this game either, and I think they missed quite a lot of guys on the inside, which allowed Derrick Henry just to curb stomp the Colts. So that was a big difference for me. But yeah, Titans winning, and that one, as you can see on the bottom of your screen there, all the stats that you need to know. Obviously the Week 10 meeting was 24-17 to the Colts in Nashville, but like I say, the Titans reversing the favor back to the Colts on their home turf. Derrick Henry, like you mentioned, Lawrence, 281 rushing yards in the 2 matches against the Colts. Not historically, but normally a very good rush defense this on the season. I think obviously the 2 games against the Titans where they've given up the most rush yards, is quite easy obviously to see why when you've got the Beaver running the other way. And like I say, yeah, AJ Brown, touchdown, yards after the catch, 69. Say it with me. Nice. Touchdown, loads of yak on that one. Obviously, you mentioned there, special teams touchdown at the end there to give them the spoils. We continue on then to the rest of the AFC. Is a turnover fest in Buffalo, 27-17, the final score in this one. Obviously, one of the main storylines coming into this one was the return of Austin Eckler. Was a bit of a scare for the Bills when Josh Allen went down for a little while. Matt Barkley came in for a couple of plays, but he managed to come back on the field and see it through. Anthony Lynn, who will be featuring a bit later on in the podcast, for me, clearly getting in the way of Justin Herbert and clearly getting in the way of this Los Angeles Chargers team, but that's for a bit later. But Buffalo taking the spoils in that one, improving to 8-3. But Miami 7-4 are right there behind them after their win against the hapless Jets. Obviously 20-3 in this one after smashing them the game before when Ryan Fitzpatrick was starter once again 24-0. Tua obviously out with an injury in this one. 2 touchdowns in the game to the tight ends. Mike Gesicki, lovely touchdown, and Adam Shaheen as well. They both found the end zone. But yeah, straightforward stuff there for Miami over in New Jersey. And then moving on to another AFC team that fell flat on their face, and that you could have as many analogies if you like. But the Las Vegas Raiders, for lack of a better word, just didn't turn up to Atlanta. They must have turned up to another stadium to play their NFL game, because they certainly didn't go to Atlanta and Georgia and play in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. The Falcons rolled the Raiders here 43-6. No one, and I mean no one, saw that one coming. Even Falcons fans didn't see this one coming. So certainly not by 37 points. So to think that this was a bigger winning margin than the game in Denver, which we'll get to shortly indeed. But Jesus Christ, but a catastrophic loss here, Kieran, for the Raiders in terms of the playoff race. 2 losses on the bounce now after their loss against Kansas City. But the striking thing, and the thing I can't put my finger on, is how good they even looked in defeat last week against Kansas City Chiefs, and just how inept and how awful they were in this game here. And this is a Falcons team that don't have any aspirations anymore this season. They're not going anywhere fast. They've got an interim head coach. The offensive line can't guard against the wind, and but I suppose any given Sunday.
In what world are we living in where MVP candidate Derek Carr has more interceptions than Nathan Peterman? What is happening, guys? We're living in the upside down. It's no touchdowns by the Raiders. None. They gave... I have said all season, I love this Raiders team. They're run first. And I know Lawrence as well loves that, the run first, smash mouth, 5 yards and a cloud of dust football. And what they do this game, they handed it to Josh Jacobs 7 times. Hey, I need Funko Pops like that. Yeah, they gave it to Josh Jacobs 7 times, and quite honestly, who's been terrible this season. Well, not terrible. He's been good at points, while Matt Ryan dropped back almost 40 times and still only got 185 passing yards. I could do that if I dropped back 40 times. But no, the Falcons are all over him. I don't think anyone saw this game going the Falcons' way. No, like you said, the Falcons fans themselves, they show up in their arena league looking uniforms that look terrible, and then they play a game like this, which really shows that maybe getting rid of Dan Quinn has been the best things they ever could have done. And sorry to Scott Olsen there in the chat, getting nothing for his fantasy team with Josh Jacobs. I really feel for you there, because he's on my fantasy team as well. But yeah, the Raiders have a ton of weapons, and just the refusal to use them yesterday. Hunter Renfrow was probably the only guy who looked like he was trying, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And he plays that angry for the same reason I act this angry, because my hair is falling out and I'm not even 30 yet. So what the Raiders, I think, need to do in this week is they need to sit down and they need to reassess this game, because this is a game where everything went wrong for them. Derek Carr was making bad reads, getting forced out of the pocket, errant throws. They weren't handing the ball to 2 of their biggest playmakers in Josh Jacobs and Henry Ruggs, who, been really muted. He came out to all this fanfare thinking, look, it was a very Raiders pick. They picked him because he's fast, but then he hasn't lived up to that potential. You've got a guy like Henry Ruggs who can take the top off any defense in the NFL, and he's just, he's not getting the targets he should. If we take away anything from this game, Ross Sterling bragging in chat as well that he had Tyreek Hill on multiple teams. If there's one thing we take away from this game, is that you can't get complacent, because I think that's what happened with the Raiders. They come in against a terrible Falcons team and thought, we're going to trounce it. And that happens. I'm not saying Josh Gruden is a guy who gets John Gruden, sorry, Josh Gruden. I'm not saying Gruden is a guy who gets complacent. or really lets standards slip like that. But it appears he did this season. You could even tell when you were seeing on the sidelines and his frustrations and the players' frustrations. This isn't the same Raiders we saw beat the Chiefs, not by a long shot. So, I think Raiders really need to sit down and reassess what they're doing at this point. I don't know if they can still make playoffs. They're 6-5.
But that brings me actually quite nicely on. Obviously, I'll just round out with the Browns. Obviously, the Browns just I say squeak past the Jacksonville Jaguars. It got hairy for a little bit, but obviously being able to rely on the run game. And Mike Glennon was quite plucky and was quite boisterous in defeat. But they probably just made it look a bit because if they were trying. But I don't know if you would. Obviously, Sean might join us a bit later on, but I don't know if he was ever worried at all. I know I had him in a big last man, the Browns in a big last man standing competition. I was a bit. I was scratching my head a little bit when they started scoring touchdowns, especially that one down to the left on the left-hand sideline from I can't remember. He was the one that made the diving catch. I can't remember who it was now, but the dive for the end zone. Colin Johnson, wasn't it? No, not Colin Johnson. Tyler Johnson. One of them. Johnson.
Colin.
But,
It was Colin.
Yeah, it was Colin. That was it. Yeah, he looks a star, by the way. So obviously Browns will get the win as well. But obviously the Bills now the number 4 seed. We talked about the Bills. They're number 4 seed. Obviously Tennessee have the head-to-head over them. Browns number 5 seed. Dolphins number 7 seed, and the Raiders number 9. Do we think the Raiders make the playoffs? Kieran, they kind of they're on the outside looking in the number 9 spot at the moment. Obviously Baltimore still to play as well. You're out of the 4. Which of the 4 teams, Bills, Browns, Dolphins, and Raiders, do you think will go furthest?
Honestly, I think Bills, because from this season, the beginning of this season, I said I almost think they're a Super Bowl team and that you could lock them in for the Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs have played way better than I expected this season. I thought they'd kind of have a Super Bowl hangover and couple that with no preseason and things like that. But yeah, I think out of those teams, probably Bills have the potential to go the furthest, but Miami have been so disruptive. They have gone in against teams that they have no business being in there against and looked absolutely stellar. Which is actually the problem I had with the Browns in this Jags game, is that the Browns are a very good football team. Let's make no mistake about that. They are a very good football team, but they really excel at making terrible football teams look competent. And I don't know how they do it with the amount of talent they've got.
And then, Lawrence, just a quick one from you. Which one do you think? That was a really stupid question to ask, Kieran. Really, it was always going to be the Bills. So a bit of unbiasedness from you. What do you think?
It's a little slightly controversial, but I think if the Miami Dolphins stick with Fitzmagic and kind of just let Tua kind of just learn on the sidelines, this could be a Dolphins team that has a kind of once in a decade bonkers season. I just, that defense is playing out of its skin. The secondary, Andrew Van Ginkel, my new favorite linebacker in the league. I'm loving watching the Dolphins. Okay, let's not talk about the Jets for more than 5 seconds, but the Dolphins are a legitimate team, and they've got some weapons around them. Let's just get them to the playoffs, and then let's have some fun. I'm looking
it's going to be
a Miami team in the postseason. It's
going to be an interesting dynamic to see how that quarterback story plays out. I noticed there was another signature on that helmet there, Lawrence. Who's the signature on that helmet?
This is after a Dolphins game.
Tim Tebow as well, was it?
No. This was a lot of the team. This was a lot of kind of like Brent Grimes and various people, offensive linemen. It was all when they were kind of, they come out the showers, they put on their, Hawaiian shirts and stuff, and just stood outside the stadium, and they were great.
Should get a job with JSA, Lawrence.
I should do. and funnily enough, this is actually this is not a kind of design signature helmet. I actually had an ice cream in it. So when I was at the stadium, they actually put ice cream in it. So there you go. That was an ice cream holder. Not a bad one, eh?
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, like Ross mentions there, we'll learn about more of the Dolphins in week 14 when they play the Chiefs. That's obviously one that's coming up on the horizon, but we'll certainly look forward to that in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks' time now, I suppose. Okay, let's move over then to the NFC playoff picture. This is, I mean, it's a bit brutal. The Saints and Broncos played a football game, and no sense of the word of quarterbacks on the field or on the papers or anything like that. But Kieran, I've kind of themed the NFC section. I don't know what you're doing with your hands. Oh, I see. Yeah, we'll come to you in a minute. I've kind of named this section. There's quite a lot of NFC teams that kind of have question marks over their future quarterback, but obviously we'll start with the Saints and the Broncos game. No quarterback for the Broncos, obviously, in this one. Was literally a quarterback carousel. Obviously, Lindsay started off the carousel, and then you have flashes of Royce, and then you flashes of Hinton, flashes of Gordon. Is it
Flashes of Gordon?
Yeah, well, yeah, flash. Oh yeah, Flash Gordon. No, Josh Gordon on there. But is it worth wasting our time with this game talking about it? It was
no.
Really. It's like a tiresome exhibition game, isn't it?
No, please, let's not go there.
It was fun.
It was ridiculous.
It was fun.
I was hoping Sean gets on the line because he was getting rather irritated with my commentary after every drive. I was posting Hinton's stats on the full 10 WhatsApp group, and it was incredible that he got to half time with 0 completions. And who's the last quarterback to get to half time with 0 completions?
Nathan Peterman.
No, it's another Bronco.
John Elway.
Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
My boy.
Such a Tim Tebow stat.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
and I apologize. You can see on the ticker and below. I really didn't know when I was putting the stats on this. I really didn't know what to put for the Broncos. So I've just put everyone that played at quarterback, nothing to see here, and Noah Fant caught a pass. I apologize, Broncos fans, and I know a couple of them, and I'm sorry, but that's the best I could do. That's really the best I could do for you guys. But Kieran, just talk us through.
New Orleans was not much better in the passing game.
No.
Taysom Hill is a great athlete. Trash quarterback. Why did they insist on paying this man tons of money after Teddy Bridgewater did what Teddy Bridgewater did, after they got Jameis Winston for an absolute steal? This man is on your roster, and you still play. And you still play a Mormon out of Brigham Young University to try and run an offense he is woefully unequipped to handle.
2 W's later, the Saints fans have got the number 1 seed and they're sitting pretty. So sometimes you do not need to win pretty. I was watching Cam Newton just before we went on air saying that, he'd rather every single time win ugly than lose pretty. And, I don't think it was a particularly ugly loss. They weren't game planning to put Taysom Hill and, get him to throw 45 passes in a game. He wasn't going to be like a plug and replace of Breeze. He was doing his own thing. And as I said before, I think there is no better sight than Taysom Hill with a full head of steam. He is a frightening man. If he gets 5 yards clear of the line of scrimmage and he's still building up steam, Christ, no one wants to stand in front of him. He's fun to watch. Absolutely fun to watch. Yeah, he's not a gifted quarterback in the traditional drop back 1980s Dan Marino sense, but this is 2020. This is the COVID year of 2020. Anything goes.
Here's a question then. All right, so swap quarterbacks on both teams in that game. What's the result? Put Taysom Hill on Denver and put Cherry Hinton, then whatever his name is, Kendall Hinton, quarterback for the Saints. Who wins the game?
It's closer. It's probably
9-0. 9-0. Oh, yeah, it probably would be.
9-0 to the Chiefs. There's still
9-0 to the Chiefs. They're not even playing.
The Saints are still going to win, but it would have been closer.
Go on, Kieran. Sorry, we're interrupting. I mean, I suppose the funny thing is we have something to talk about in this game. I mean, it's not necessarily the football on the field, but it's quite funny, isn't it?
People give me so much crap online because I do not think Taysom Hill is a good quarterback. All this game did was prove once again, like I am almost every other day, that I was right Again, it's what I do. I am consistently right in my takes. The only take I've ever whiffed on is saying that LSU were going to have more wins than the Florida Gators this year. I get it. I said before the season, Taysom Hill is not a good quarterback. Miami will have a top 8 defense. Ryan Tannehill's going to look fantastic, and Josh Allen's making a run at MVP. I was not wrong on any of those things, so I am sticking to my guns on Taysom Hill is a great athlete, terrible quarterback. When he's plugged in to most fantasy teams as a tight end, come on. He couldn't even throw for 100 yards against a very injury-cropped Broncos team. This Broncos defense isn't exactly groundbreaking or really getting stops. It just proves that he can't stand in there. If they don't start Jameis Winston, I am going down to New Orleans. I am marching down there, and I'm going to punch their head coach in the face until my hand breaks for playing Taysom Hill. Let me say it again. Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston. Say what you want about Jameis Winston last season in New Orleans. He is a way better quarterback than Taysom Hill. And that's just the way it goes.
Right,
maybe next week. You can up your game and show a little bit of passion next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been so flat this evening.
Yeah, talking of the Denver Broncos defense, it wasn't exactly the Super Bowl 51, was it? But yeah, just a couple of notes on this one. Kendall Hilton, funny enough, and I'm surprised you didn't come up with this one, Kieran, or you didn't mention it. Kendall Hinton has actually thrown a touchdown pass more recently than Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's last touchdown pass was thanks to Sean, obviously in our team. Sean Tyler come up with this one. BYU Taysom Hill 2016 is the last time he threw a touchdown pass, and Kendall Hinton threw one at Wake in 2017. So Kendall Hinton finishing 1 of 9 as Lawrence with all his fingers earlier. 2 interceptions for 13 yards, and like I say, Noah Fant with the only reception, and even over, I think half of that was Yak, wasn't it? Not pretty. But you have to feel, obviously Drew Lock's come out and said that he owns the mistake, and obviously they didn't wear masks. So it's an interest in the differences, and I'm not going to get into the Pittsburgh Steelers arguments right now about being screwed over and all the rest of it by COVID. That's for another podcast. That's for another debate, maybe in the off season to once it's all said and done. But we will move over to the NFC North. Lawrence, you have got the Packers who trounced the Bears. Quick word on the Packers' performance, and obviously Trubisky in at QB at this one. And then kind of what's the long-term plan for the Bears at quarterback? Because Nick Foles obviously isn't the answer. He's come out, he's obviously injured, and Trubisky clearly isn't the answer because he got benched for Nick Foles early on in the season. So yeah, give us the Packers' performance and then your thoughts of the QB situation.
It's kind of one of these games I don't really want to dwell on or spend too much time on. That narrative about Aaron Rodgers bouncing back immediately from a poor performance is an absolute truth, kind of one of the biggest truths in the NFL. He has an absolute nightmare, and then he has an absolute dream game following up. 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He didn't even have to go into 5th gear. He was kind of in 3rd going into 4th. He didn't even have to step into 5th gear at any point because the lead was so big at one point. We've got to give credit to the Packers running game. Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, what a fantastic pairing. And talk about even Stevens, both had 17 carries each. We talked about kind of what was the downfall of the Raiders, that lack of running game. What really made the difference in this game? Yes, Aaron Rodgers had a pretty stat line, but this came down to the Packers establishing, keeping hold of the football, keeping long drives, and giving the ball to Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. 163 yards between them. And then we've got to look elsewhere as well. Robert Tonyan, the tight end, he's excelled all season. Another big game, another touchdown, actually his 7th touchdown of the season. Tonyan came into 2020, he had 14 catches in 2 years as a kind of, end of the roster kind of player, special teamer. He's now caught 37 out of the 42 balls thrown his way this season, and he's having a really, really good season. So, and fantasy wise, never too expensive. It's just a lovely little pickup, Robert Tonyan. So, his price will go up now, but hopefully people have had some good value from him to date. Stats can be very, very deceiving. Mitch Trubisky actually outpassed Aaron Rodgers by over 30 yards. But that's not a true. It doesn't depict how good he was on
he
the
also
day.
he also had 17 more attempts.
Yeah, I mean, let's kind of gloss over that. And yeah, I mean, the reality was most of those yards were gained in the fourth quarter after the Bears were trailing by 31 points, and it was it was all over. Even David Montgomery had a half decent stat line. His first 100-yard game, yes, it was kind of helped by that 50-plus yard run. That's always going to help any running back stat line. But he had 143 yards total and a receiving touchdown. So, not a bad performance from someone who has, completely underwhelmed in almost 2 full NFL seasons. It came down to the Bears defense that has been bending. I mean, you look at their last 4 losses has been by a combined 30 points. So they're losing by just over a touchdown a game. And then boom, the Aaron Rodgers show turns up, and that defense that was bending finally broke. And those 2 garbage time touchdowns by Trubisky made the stat line look, it made it look like it's not a blowout. It was a blowout. It was an absolute blowout. Those 2 scores, flattered to deceive. Bears, just like you were saying, Tim, in terms of missing a big defensive lineman, Bears missing Akeem Hicks absolutely showed up. They allowed the Packers to have possession for almost 38 minutes. The Bears defense managed 0 turnovers. Khalil Mack and the entire defense was held sackless as the Packers had the game in the bag with a whole quarter still left to play. And in fact, it was that bad for the Bears defense. They didn't even manage a single quarterback pressure in the entire game. Ooh. This is the Bears defense, not a single quarterback pressure. So, we all know the line now, 5-1 to 5-6 for the Bears. This is going to cost Matt Nagy his job at some point. I mean, I was reading about him, what he said after the game, saying that every freaking coach on the staff, every player better wake up. I mean, this is a bad sign, I think, of a coach who's kind of on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And to answer your question, Tim, neither Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky are the future of the Bears. At the moment, the Bears have got about as much swagger as Paddington, and their defense is lost in deepest, darkest Peru. Maybe if the entire team all have a marmalade sandwich before their home game against the Lions, they can end that 5-game skid. I mean, you look, Trubisky, 26-19 in his career, 3-1 this season. Again, completely deceptive statistic. He's not winning 75% of his games. On paper, he is, but that's just a bonkers stat. Foles is actually a 28-27 on his career, so he's just above 500 as a career quarterback, and he's 2-5 this season. So neither of them are the answer, and I think the Bears, unfortunately, are going to limp through the season if they get 1 or 2 more wins and somehow scrape an 8-8 season. It's not going to help them. They're just stuck right in that kind of like middle of the road mire, and you might as well crash and burn from this point onwards and try and get a better quarterback in the 2021 draft. They're not going to want to admit to doing that, but they might start thinking about doing that, considering that their season is pretty much written off now.
Yeah, and Kieran, we'll just come to you. Obviously, just quick 30 seconds. Obviously, you are a college guy. Is there any particular quarterbacks in this class that's going to come out next season that they should maybe look at? Obviously, they're not going to be in the tank for Trevor Stakes and Justin Fields, and probably not going to be high enough. But is there anyone else that maybe they should be kind of watching some tape for to get excited about?
I think Kyle Trask out of Florida would be a very good choice. He's a big guy. He'd fit that sort of offense. The only problem is he tends to, when he doesn't find a receiver, he tends to just tuck the ball and take off as a runner. But, that can be coached out of him. Him or Zach Wilson out of BYU. I think those two are very gettable options for the Bears at mid-first round. Both guys playing out of their mind this year and obviously would be good pickups for the NFL. But if depending on how their record shakes out, I don't know how high of a pick they're going to have.
Yeah, they do have to see if they win any more games, and certainly what their the motivation is to win any more games from here on out. So, okay, let's round out then. Quick 5 minutes for the rest of the NFC. You can see the scores going there across the bottom of the screen. We'll start off in the NFC West. A couple of late kicks here, deciding a couple of games with the three teams involved. San Francisco with a Robbie Gould late one to beat the Rams to shake up the NFC West 23-20. The final in this one, very physical game in this one. That Kyle Shanahan said beforehand. He wanted to get physical in this one with the run game, and that's what they did. Pretty much controlling this game for the whole game, and until the Rams defense managed to swing it back, the pendulum back into their kind of favor. But then the 49ers kind of regrouped and rejigged a few things, and again took control of the fourth quarter. Say Robbie Gould, as he's done through many a time in his career, but batting it through the uprights as time expires. San Francisco obviously now improving to 5-6. Seattle obviously playing tonight, but obviously now all teams two wins within each other. So pick the bones out of that one. Quick word: who do you reckon wins the West, Lawrence? One word.
Seahawks, is this the West? Am I getting
Yeah,
my right?
yeah. Seahawks,
Yeah,
Cardinals,
yeah.
Rams, and
Seahawks.
Kieran.
Yeah, I said from the beginning of the season, Seahawks.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think this is a kind of division where obviously San Francisco were the favourites coming into the season. Then it was kind of Seattle's to lose, and Arizona made a play by beating them, and then it looked as though Arizona were going to make kind of a charge, and then the Rams obviously were top coming into this one after their win last week. But maybe it's all going to come full circle, but surely not the 49ers from that position. But they are getting healthy. Obviously, return of Deebo Samuel and Richard Sherman on both sides of the ball there, and amongst others, obviously helping to their cause. The other team in the NFC West that played yesterday, Arizona, lost to a last-second Nick Folk field goal, 20-17, the final in this one. Arizona did have a chance to go and win it themselves. Then Gonzalez, more kicking troubles for him, missing it from the 45, the 35, was a 45-yard try. He's now missed 5 on the season from 21 attempts. That is hashtag not great, Bob. Patriots are now 5-6. Can they make a playoffs as a wild card? Possibly. I've got to come to you, Kieran, shortly in a minute, but they finish off with a 2-week stay in Los Angeles to play the Chargers and the Rams, and then they have 3 divisional games to round it off at Dolphins versus Bills and the Jets as well, as Lawrence takes a back seat. They're not quite sure where he's gone. But yeah, what do you make of the Patriots from here on out? Because you said before we went on air that you didn't want necessarily, you wanted to top 10 pick and go from there, but obviously a win kind of changes that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the problem is Bill Belichick as a coach has, I think, too much pride to tank. Even though if him and Kraft spoke about it, say, look, my position's safe, let's go out and lose a bunch of games. I don't think that's his style. I would have liked a top 10 pick because I think, but here's the problem. We never do good with our first round picks. The last good first round pick we had was Dante Hightower, and he's a defensive guy. So we really struggle. You know, we've got a Husky as our GM making picks. So if you remember the draft, there was a dog sat in Bill Belichick's chair for half of it. I think this is a statement win to say, look, we can contend with the big teams, but I don't even think we get a wild card spot because we are the 3rd best team in our division right now. The Bills and Dolphins are consistently playing top tier football and beating teams that nobody thought they had any business going against. And then the only other team's the Jets, which is good for us because we know we're going to get at least 2 wins on a season. And then during the course of this podcast, we now found out Julian Edelman is on injured reserve. So I don't know. I think we just foster the talent we've got, bring in a new quarterback next season. I don't think we should try too hard in the rest of the games. We've got solid core guys. Jacoby Myers has been fantastic. Obviously, Damon Harris really had a breakout year this year at running back. But there's not many other pieces on that offense that we can really win games with. So I think it would be a case of just, taking it easy for the rest of the season, getting Damon Harris with 100-plus yards, maybe trying to get rid of Sony Michel for a pick. Just get as much draft capital as we can. I think if I am correct on the statement I read a week ago in my Patriots group chat, we should have $97 million worth of cap going into next season with all the dead cap from Gronkowski and Brady and stuff. I know we're not a big free agency team. We don't like to pay guys, but this could be a turning point. Bill Belichick could say, hey, we don't have a great quarterback or anything, a guy who's inspiring everyone to get better as well as Brady does. So I think maybe next season we rebuild and you'll be back to seeing the Patriots in every other Super Bowl again.
Yeah, there's certainly something to not look forward to. It's quite interesting how the New England Patriots nullified the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, 23 of 34 for 170 yards, no touchdowns and 1 interception, and just 5 rushes for 31 yards on the ground there. So there was an interesting play. I think the penultimate drive for Arizona. It was amazing. I think it was 9 plays inside the red zone for Arizona. They kept getting to third down, and then New England committing penalties to reset the downs. But it's a fascinating set of plays on that one. So if you are watching the game in 40, you want to go back and watch. Go and watch that. It was quite interesting. Let's round up the rest of the games then that you can see on the bottom of the screen. The Teddy Bridgewater Bowl. Teddy B was smiling going into the kind of the late stages of this one. Had the Panthers comfortably up in this one, but like every week, similarly in the NFL, one big lead. Well, not necessarily big lead. I think it was 11 points at one point in this one, but it seemed to go by the wayside. 21-10 up going into the fourth. And then Kirk Cousins decides to turn up. There, I say it wasn't a prime time, but he obviously turned up where the business end of the game. A couple of touchdown passes to Justin Jefferson and Chad Beebe. Obviously no Adam Thielen in this one either, but scary moment for Dalvin Cook. When he went down, obviously he was able to shake it off. But two field goals in the fourth quarter from the Panthers, effectively not just quite enough to get the win in this one. Vikings move to 5-6. The Panthers 4-8 as they now move to the bye. Lawrence.
Yeah, just a quick one. Just wanted to say a shout out to my friend Scott, who's watching this. He's an American living in Minnesota, so he's dialed in from Minnesota. So congratulations, Scott, on your win. It's not going to get you anywhere, but well done on the victory. And just in typical fashion, to make myself feel really old, and yes, that is a grey beard, and I do feel as old as my grey beard. Obviously, I remember Chad Beebe's pops playing quite a lot of significant football for the Bills and stuff. So, this was back in the day. So I just feel it makes me feel ancient when I'm watching the son of whoever playing in the 2020 season. So yeah, just thanks for making me feel old, Chad Beebe.
Yeah, and then Kieran was doing his best Cristiano Ronaldo goal celebration impression there with his little finger in the air. What do you want?
Can we just shut down the talk about Justin Herbert being Rookie of the Year now and just give that to Justin Jefferson?
It's worth a poll,
let's just be honest.
He's worth a poll.
Top 5 receiver in the NFL right now. No question. So he deserves Rookie of the Year. I know it's cool to give it to quarterbacks or whatever, but quite frankly, no rookie quarterback has deserved it this year, besides maybe Joe Burrow, until his knee exploded. So Justin Jefferson for Rookie of the Year, and I think Scott Olsen will like that.
He certainly will.
And which rookie leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns?
Which NFL rookie leads in rushing touchdowns? Whatever.
No, this season.
Oh, this season.
Right now, as we speak.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Rushing touchdowns, gents. Rushing.
I don't know. My mind's gone blank. What? Who?
Justin
Antonio
Herbert.
Gibson.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Right, let's move on. The other game to get over with, Giants. We've got to talk about the NFC East, I suppose, at some point. Daniel Jones going down with an injury in this one. Probably going to miss a few weeks. We will see he gets an MR right today, but obviously it's a huge in the context of the NFC East, obviously currently leading it, possibly now in Washington's hands, with all things considered. Obviously the Philadelphia Eagles are playing a bit later tonight. 19-17 in this one. Looked very ropey for a while in this one, but Bengal Brandon Wilson writing himself into the record books with 103 yard return touchdown after Gorman got in on the Giants' first drive. Then after that, essentially, the Giants asked Graham Gano to do a quadruple shift like they do in the NHS at the moment, paying homage to those guys. Clearly, Graham Gano, obviously a Scot himself, but Bengals made it interesting late on. with the T. Higgins at touchdown, but too little, too late for the Bengals. Obviously, with was it Brandon Allen quarterback this week? Obviously, they are in a free fall, and it's still a long way away before Joey B returns to the field. That wraps us up for the week review. So we're going to get some winners and losers. Lawrence, actually, no. Before we do, we've got a little guest in the waiting room talking of NHS in the I call it the emergency room, but we'll add him in. Mr. Sean Blundell, how are you doing?
Evening, fellas. How are we?
Yeah, very well. You all right?
Yeah, not bad. I'd like the last 2 hours of my life back, but apart from that, I'm pretty good, mate. Not too bad at all.
Second half didn't go well then.
Well, played well but lost, mate. Sounds similar to my fandom of the last 10 years, mate. Played well and lost.
There we go. All right. Well, I won't allow you to put Aston Villa as your loser, but Lawrence, we'll come to you. We'll come to you first with the winner. Who's your winner for week 12?
Oh,
I'm going for the Atlanta Falcons defense. We've talked about them as the shock of the week. If we look at it from a fantasy perspective, that Falcons defense scored 28 fantasy points. Anyone who predicted that, honestly, they deserve some sort of special medal. So what was really important for the Falcons D is they managed to kind of wrap a watertight tourniquet around the kind of their collective wounds that they've had over the course of the season. And it's really interesting. Interim head coach Raheem Morris is actually now 4-2 since taking over. So there's hope. There is hope in Atlanta. They allowed under 7 points for the first time this season, whilst putting up their biggest total. Raiders turned the ball over 5 times, had just 13 first downs, and had the ball for about 25 minutes. Biggest Falcons win for over half a decade. And the momentum swinger in this game was the 69-yard interception return for Deion Jones, the linebacker, that gave them a 20-point lead early in the third quarter. The Falcons have got the weapons on offense if Julio Jones can somehow manage to get on the field. And they've now proved they've actually got a bit of a defense. So, loving a bit of Falcons defense this week. And my other one little extra winner that I'll chuck in there, and it's kind of obvious, is all the fans of the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
So yeah, we talked a bit earlier about all the fans donating to Deshaun Watson's charity, and they're all donating amounts of $13, and that $13 represents the amount of wins that Matt Patricia had in 43 games.
Thanks,
so 13 wins in 43 games. Considering he's from the Belichick tree, it's been an abject failure in Detroit, an absolute abject failure. So I know that the Lions owner has said that they're going to really do their work in terms of getting a new head coach. But they've, whoever gets that job has got a tough ask.
Yeah, they certainly do indeed. Kieran, we'll come to you. Your winner and loser are the same team, I see.
Yes, my loser more strictly is the Levi's Stadium, to be specific. But yeah, San Francisco kind of bounced back a little bit this week. They, I think Nick Mullins is a good quarterback. I'm just going to put that out there. I think he could be a starter given the right system, but they showed up. Nick Mullins, did what he did. He managed the game. He moved the ball. And they managed to pull off a win, missing half their team. Deebo Samuel looked fantastic, though. As always, that kid can just clear ground when he picks it up and takes off with the ball. So, yeah, good win for the 49ers. Maybe keeping themselves relevant until they get some more starters back. But honestly, the scariest part of this 49ers team is that they might get a high draft pick now, which is a disgusting thought with how much talent they have.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. Just before I hand it over to Sean to utter his first words on the NFL podcast, I'm just going to give him my winner to Jeremy Chin. I don't usually give defensive players any love, but 2 defensive touchdowns and back-to-back plays for the 2021 rookie pick. Certainly give a bit of love to some defense for over there in Carolina. And I tell you what, put a good QB. No disrespect to Teddy B, but you put an elite level quarterback in that team. The Carolina team's going to go places. Everyone kind of scoffed when they picked every draft pick in this season's NFL draft went on defense. Everyone kind of raised an eyebrows, but yeah, it could be an interesting way. But Mr. Blundell, we come to you finally. Any winners and losers for you this week in week 12?
Well, excuse my indulgence, but I'm obviously going to say after suffering through 12 years of losing seasons that the big winners this week are all the Cleveland Brown fans who've stuck with this absolute nightmare of a franchise through thick and thin, and officially now cannot lose this season, getting their 8th win of the season. So even if we don't win another game, fellas, that's got to be a bit of an achievement in itself. But yeah, of course they're going to the playoffs anyway, aren't they? So let's see what happens. In terms of losers, I want to call out Sean Payton as a bit of a loser, which is very strange for a team that won convincingly, but I can't believe we sat through a game on Sunday night where the 2 quarterbacks combined for less than 100 yards. And obviously I haven't been listening to you boys early, so you may have discussed this. But if I was Jameis Winston, I'd be sitting on the bench wondering to myself, what on earth am I doing here? Because you had 2 guys, and obviously I'm taking absolutely no blame here onto the poor receiver from the Broncos who was thrust into this. I mean, he was just set up to fail. And to be honest, I actually feel in some ways great for him because he'd have probably never gone on the active roster. So he's going to have made a bit of money. He's all of a sudden become a bit of a household name and a celebrity overnight. And good luck to him in the future. He went out there and he battled hard. But Taysom Hill, Jesus Christ, if Drew Brees doesn't get back quickly, I'm sorry, I know the Saints have won the 2 games that he hasn't been playing, but they are going to seriously get caught out by a better team. And if I was Sean Payton, I'd be seriously considering getting Jameis Winston onto the field. Yes, we know that he obviously can turn the ball over, and it'd be a bit of a bold move when Taysom Hill has come in and won 2 games, but I'm sorry, they are not going to win games against decent opposition in January. Turn it over to Jameis. Let's see what he can do. He's certainly going to suit the scheme a bit more than what Taysom Hill seems to have done. I think basically neither team wanted to throw the ball on Sunday, did they? And that was understandable from a Denver point of view, but no excuse for the Saints. So come on, sort it out, Sean Payton. You've got one of the best rosters in the NFL. Get the best quarterback on your roster currently out there on the field.
I'll continue the head coaching theme in terms of losers. Anthony Lynn, I mean, what is he doing? Just watch the last couple of minutes and the last drive for the Chargers. He doesn't have literally looks like he doesn't have a clue on that sideline. He's talking to officials for minutes on end, discussing God knows what. I mean, maybe he's discussing dinner plans. I have no idea. But the play calling on the last drive, absolutely abhorrent. Herbert completes a bomb, 50 yards, 45 yards down the field to Tyron Johnson to get them down to the 2-yard line. They have no timeouts left. The clock is running, and then they run Austin Eckler up the middle for 1 yard in the middle of the inbounds. What are you doing? And then 8 seconds left. They then do 2 shots to Mike Williams, stops the clock with 2 seconds to go, and then Herbert goes to line up in the shotgun, goes under center, takes the snap, and the offensive line just don't know what's going on. They're going backwards. They run in, they trample all over Justin Herbert, and could have been a serious injury there. But it's just absolute. I have no words. I have absolutely no words. Anthony Lynn needs to be. Obviously we have a resident Chargers person in our group with Lee, and it'd be interesting to get his thoughts. But I thought that was absolutely mind-numbing. I have no idea what's going on. I think the commentators were just as confused as I were. But Anthony Lynn is on borrowed time over there. He needs to go. They need to clear out there. And yes, Justin Herbert's performed well this year, and he's done, in spite of Anthony Lynn rather than, in conjunction with, just absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Lawrence, quick couple of 30 seconds for your loser, and then we'll get some stats, and then we shall get out of here.
I've got the Raiders defense to kind of cap my yin and yang of that game. The fact that they allowed 8 points more than they allowed to the Kansas City Chiefs the week before is a bit of a bad sign. And things are getting worse when the 2 opponents' running backs each rush for more than your entire team did. And then, as was mentioned earlier, we know that the biggest sign of the apocalypse is when Nathan Peterman actually takes the field and ends up with a better quarterback rating than Carr, and also manages to outrush Devontae Booker as well, who's been having quite a few nice little cameo performances. So absolutely shocking. Carr sacked 5 times, lost 3 fumbles, was intercepted. And I think all I'll leave it on is this final line. Maybe the Raiders consumed too many Spider Y2 banana daiquiris in the hotel bar the night before.
Yeah, like it a lot. Spider Y2 banana, brilliant. Okay, then, so let's move on to the final bit before we get out of here. Is of course the stats. We do love a stat. Sean, I don't think you've got any on you, but I'm certainly going to put Lawrence. And he does. He raising his eyebrows. All right, I'll come to you first. Then, so obviously plenty of stats out there with some weird goings on this week in the NFL with Mahomes, Hill, Derrick Henry, obviously the Denver game and the Las Vegas game as well. But Sean, what have you gone with your stat this week?
Well, of course, you mentioned all those games, so I'm going to go Cleveland, obviously, Tim, as you would have obviously expected. So the NFL's best running back, Nick Chubb, has averaged 5.5 yards per carry in
Is that a direct quote?
Absolutely direct quote. He has averaged 5.5 yards per carry in 7 straight games this year. That's the longest streak by any running back since the 1970 merger. Others have got at least 6, including O.J. Simpson and Adrian Peterson, but Nick Chubb is the first running back since the merger in 7 straight games to average 5.5 yards per rush.
There you go. Is this where I normally say you need to pander to the crowd? Do you know what jumper I'm wearing here? Yeah, very good indeed.
Might be the first running back, but probably not the first NFL athlete.
Oh, don't you start.
Lamar Jackson just absolutely just on that stat. Give me Lamar Jackson stats compared to Nick Chubb's next week.
Lamar Jackson stats. Let me get them up for you, Lawrence. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, he's 6 and 5, mate. Move on.
Oh, I love it. Bringing the fire. Lawrence, it's your chance for a rebuttal. What's your stat for week 12?
Well, you can't go any further than Tyreek Hill's first quarter performance, which was absolutely incredible. But if we go a little bit of retro love, if we actually go into this, it's not the best quarter receiving in NFL history. That record was actually set in December 1999 by a lesser-known brother of Rocket Raghib Ismail. It was Quadri Ishmael, who had 210 yards for the Ravens against the Steelers. Ishmael caught 3 50-plus yard touchdowns, 54, 59, and 76. And for a bonus, and I always throw it back, who was the quarterback for the Ravens?
What year?
1999.
No idea.
I'll put you out of your misery. It was Tony Banks.
Oh, of course, yeah, Tony Banks, yeah.
And so Ishmael finished that game with 6 catches for 258 yards. The entire rest of the Ravens team had 2 catches for 10 yards. And this is the absolute mind blower of the stat of this. Tony Banks was 6. Sorry, Tony Banks went 8 out of 26 on that game. 6 of the balls were caught by Quadri Ismail for 258 yards, and he only had 2 other completions, and the Ravens still won the game.
Not related to Gordon Banks, is he? We'll move on. We'll move on. Kieran, what's your stat for the week?
Not to poop on Lawrence's stat, but he missed another player. Lee Evans actually did that as well.
The comedian.
No, the very average wide receiver. Devontae Adams. This is another question. I'll pose a question like Lawrence because I now enjoy asking questions, and Lawrence would probably have the right answer. So Devontae Adams has a receiving touchdown in 6 straight games. Not only is that the longest active streak in the NFL, it ties Packers' franchise record since at least 19. Who most recently set the record before Devontae?
James Jones.
I will give you a clue. It is not Jordy Nelson, but this man set the record in 2014.
2014.
Donald Driver?
Randall Cobb.
That's it, Randall Cobb.
Nice.
I was about to say Texans player, but I think that might have been too strong a hint.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, certainly Devontae Adams in one of my fantasy teams. He only has 6 receptions for 60 yards, which on the stat line is a poor game for him, which says all you need to know about Devontae Adams. Right. Okay. Any more from anyone? Anyone got any change? Yeah, Lawrence, what you got?
Okay. Keeping on that receiving theme, this is another good one. The NFL record for receiving yards in a game remains with the Rams' Flipper Anderson, who's got 336 yards, and he needed overtime to do it back in 1989. Tyreek Hill's 269 yards, did you know, didn't even crack the top 10 in history. And in fact, it is 40 yards short of the Chiefs' single game record, which was held by a receiver called Stephon Page, who in 1985, Page set the NFL record and he held it for 4 years. He had 8 catches for 309 yards, including just 2 first-half touchdowns. Page's Chiefs beat the Chargers that day, despite the Chiefs having to play 2 quarterbacks, Bill Kenny and Todd Blackledge. 5 other Chiefs caught passes that day. No one had more than 1 catch and no one had more than 9 yards. And Page actually has an NFL record for most receiving yards in a half with 258. And that's a record that still stands right back to 1985. So there we go.
Yeah, it wasn't far from being broken, though, was it? Let's be honest. If he would have kept throwing to Tyreek Hill in the same manner in the second quarter, it would have been absolutely
achievable. It was definitely achievable. It was on there. It was on the plate.
Maybe they can try again next week. Who knows? Right, let's get out of here then. Obviously, Monday Night Football to go, and obviously Tuesday Night Football has now become Wednesday Night Football, according to what Sean has just put in Slack there. So, anyone actually think this game's going to go ahead on Wednesday? Hands up, no?
Yeah, I do. I think he'll go ahead. I think, don't want to spend too much time, like you say, we're getting out of here, but I don't really see what else the league can do, to be honest. I know people keep saying they add weeks on, but I think if we had weeks on, we're just pushing the problem further down the line. I don't really see what adding weeks on is going to solve. But, as it stands, move to Wednesday now, so let's see if it happens. Yeah, certainly will indeed. Say Philadelphia, Seattle before that. So, if it doesn't go ahead, we'll probably talk about it next week and what day it's going to play. But, if there's no further positive tests today, it would have gone ahead. But obviously been moved to Wednesday. Obviously, Dallas, Baltimore, no Thursday Night Football. That's been moved to God knows when. To God knows when. But that's going to do it for the podcast. Appreciate everyone that has gotten in touch, and appreciate Ross and who else? Ross, Scott, and Tony, and all the other guys that have communicated with us during the podcast. We're going to get out of here. Don't forget takeaways tomorrow on the website, full10yards.com. For your takeaways on the Tuesday. Obviously, we'll have a fantasy pod as well tomorrow coming your way, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Myself and the gang will be back next Monday, same time at the same place, to go over week 13. Will it be lucky for some? Will it be unlucky for others? So it's goodbye from Lawrence, goodbye from Kieran, goodbye from Sean. He'll be back in the driver's seat next week. But in the meantime, in the great words of Kevin Cato, it's been a while since I've said this one. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Full 10 Yards, or email the show full10yards@gmail.com.